Ladies and gentlemen, I've got some massive news for you. No, I did not become a grandmaster. I set my highest ever personal blitz rating on chess.com. So let me give you a little bit of backstory. I personally haven't been training chess seriously at all since about late 2018 when I achieved my international master title. Actually, if we take a look at my rating chart, you see that it really goes up and down quite a lot. Just 2 months ago, I slumped all the way down to below 2,500 and I was getting extremely frustrated with my play. So let this serve as a lesson and a motivating factor for all of you who are suffering with elo anxiety. We go up, we go down. Sometimes for me, it's almost as big as 300 points. But for this video, I want to take you through 3 amazing games that I played today on stream. All 3 of these games I played at over 98% accuracy. So technically, I could be a candidate for my catching cheater videos, but obviously that's just a joke. I'm going to take you through all 3 games as I just mentioned, and if you stick around until the end, there's a nice surprise that awaits you. So let's kick things off. First game, I've got the black pieces. I'm playing a German FIDE master rated 2630. I've got black, so I play e4. My opponent plays e4. I go with the ye old trusty Caro-Kann. You see me playing this in about 70 to 80% of my games against title players. My opponent plays knight c3, d5, knight f3. And throughout these 3 games, I want to navigate the 3 phases of the game for you to take you kind of through my knowledge of that opening and how I transition it and kind of adapt to the middle game position. So here, I play the move a6. Now, there's a lot of different lines against the 2 knights Caro-Kann. There's de4, there's bishop to g4. I have been playing a6 for a while, and the idea of this move is that if white takes on d5, this is an exchange Caro-Kann that's suboptimal with the knight on c3, and if white plays the pawn to d4, then I do this, because in actually a lot of the positions where you play bishop g4 on the 3rd move, white doesn't play d4, white plays d3, so this a6 waiting move makes this happen, and then I trade and play e6, and the structure that I want is I get rid of my light squared bishop, and I'm very solid. All my pawns are on light squares, and I am baiting the move e5. I actually love it if this move happens, because I rotate my knight back, and then these structural kind of significances, I'm going to play the move c5. And c5 is really strong, because it chips away at this. Now, at this point, in many positions, white's best move is to go here, which is a weird move, but not for us title folk, and to kind of go like this, because then white gets connect 4, and somewhere Eric Rosen squeals in delight. But in this game, my opponent castled. I played bishop to e7, and if white waits with the move e5, white is actually doing quite well. Actually, white waited until this point and made me retreat back to g8. Now, who has won the battle of the opening? Definitely my opponent. More active, I didn't get what I wanted, and my opponent has played the critical move, knight e2, getting to this position. Here the computer is saying that white is +2. What does that mean? How does the computer evaluate that? Well, I'm very passive. That's really the truth. I don't have a very good position here. But I play rook to c8, and I'm trying to stay solid. My opponent plays rook c1. I play c4. Opponent drops the bishop all the way back. And I realized here that if I play the move queen to b6, it's impossible for my opponent to defend that weakness. The base of the pawn chain oftentimes is the target. My opponent plays rook c2, and I was kind of like, you know what? That's a really awkward coordination of their pieces. I'm going to play g6. Why would I play g6? Well, queen g4 to attack my pawn is no longer possible. Now I've also completed the mythical quest of having 8 pawns all on one sort of square. That's called a light squared complex. And of course, maybe I can kind of anticipate that a pawn attack is coming this way for these kinds of positions. And well, look at that. I was right. But now I get to play h5, which is actually the whole reason why I did this. If my opponent plays g5 and h4, they lock the position, but they will never break through because I will control that square very well. I will also move my bishop and defend that square with a 3rd piece. So after h5, my opponent dropped the queen back because it was obviously their intention to go like this, and here I took and took. And here I played something which I am so fond of, and this kind of shows like how the brain works when it's all fully firing and functioning. I was like, all right, my opponent wants to go f4, f5, right? And they clearly aren't afraid of this open file because there's nothing I can really do. I can't even really develop because if I play knight to h6, they just come in with the attack. They also can pin me to my rook. So am I really going to move my bishop and then try to, it's a totem? I was like, wait a minute. They want to attack my king. Why don't I just get him out of there? I mean, I can't castle, but what if I play king d8, king c7, and here. And I did exactly that. I literally walked my king out of danger. And now black is fine. The computer doesn't even realize how good this idea is until you put it like into the computer, and the computer goes, oh, so knight here and king b8. And I'm so proud of this idea. I just walked my king. So at this point, the opponent basically is stuck. Like, do they play f5 or what? Like, what are they going to do? So the opponent goes queen f3. Now I engage in the second stage of the game, rook h4. Fighting back, planting the rook. And now my knight is coming in as well. So the opponent has to go g5. Now, g5 restricts the movement of my knight completely, but it also gives that f5 square to me. So what do? I start mobilizing on the queen side first. First, I play the move a5, but I know that when I move my bishop, bang, 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 and I'm going to get to that square, I have more space on the queen side. And since my opponent has officially shut the door on playing on that side of the board, I am going to break on this side. You guys ask me a lot what to do in close positions. Finding that key infiltration spot, and ideally playing where you have more space. Opponent goes up, a4, and stops me from playing my move. Had I successfully been able to play a3, I would have been crushing, because then I break through. And I'm protected by my bishop, so the opponent goes here. Again, pawn's been pushed, so b3 is a juicy square. And I'm thinking, can I get my knight there somehow? Or can I take this and infiltrate with my queen or get to the bishop? Who's hitting the bishop? I mean, who's guarding the bishop? The rook. So I did this because I wanted to move my bishop and then move my knight. And here my opponent played rook h1. If you remember, my opponent wants to trade off my rook. But if you remember, who guards that bishop? Who guards that bishop? Bang, bang. Nobody. Bishop takes a3 and dynamite strikes. And now my opponent has to scramble to guard the b2 pawn. So I brought it back. Now I'm ready to infiltrate with a3. Opponent goes knight g3. I go back to d8 because at this point I wanted to play knight e7, knight f5. Also, there's low time. So when you get low on time, you don't play perfect. Bishop a2. I start bringing my knight. And I play knight c6. I forget about this. I'm going bang, bang, and bang. I'm going to b3. That square looks mighty nice. Opponent plays rook to f2. I play queen a5. You say, why queen a5? Well, I play queen a5 because I want to renew the idea of this, and I'm seeing this. I'm responding to my opponent's moves. This is no longer guarded. So rook f2 is definitely not threatening f5. I'm just going to take queen a5, bishop c1. Now we go back to e7. We moved the bishop out of the way, we brought the knight, and now we put the bishop back. In close positions, you can be patient. Maximize where your pieces are standing before you make that break. So we get rook to c2, and now I'm ready. I bring in the only pawn that hasn't moved on the queen side, and b4. I am not worried about this. Do not get afraid of ghosts. Oh, the queen's coming in. Oh, it's so scary. And everything's guarded. Everything's guarded. So b4. Opponent plays bishop to b1. Don't take. Stay patient. Chip away. That's it. The pawns have arrived. We have broken through. It's a bull in a China store. Is that the idea? And now we get bishop to b2. I gotta back up. This is the secret. Don't just get in there. Don't just get in there. You might get stuck. There's no way out once I get in there. I have no more squares. Threatening to trap me. It's very unpleasant. So I backed up, making room for my pawns and threatening to win this pawn. Queen went to c1. I still got a knight. Staying patient. Brought the knight to a4. Removed the defender of the squares. And now I take. And now it all falls apart. Offer that queen trade. Why not? Why not? The rook wants to take part 2, right? And now queen a3. Opponent doesn't want to trade. So I infiltrate. My queen and my rook are looking to meet up on that square. So we get rook f1. Queen c3. Opponent starts to sacrifice here. You know, desperate times call for desperate measures and all that. But I realized during the game that, again, my queen and my rook can meet on h3. Got to see cross-board coordination. I realized knight f5. I don't even have to take. In fact, if you take, you get all of a sudden hit with this. You're like, whoa. Always look for checks. Always look for checks. The only safe check I have. And I go straight down. Very common checkmate pattern. I even saw it coming. When I played pawn takes f5 during the game, I pre-moved queen h3. Why? Well, it could have been a stupid pre-move if the opponent went here. But that's a terrible move. But I pre-moved this because I had a feeling they were going to do this. So they took queen h3, bang, bang. Clean game. Recovering from a passive opening, infiltrating over there on the queen side, anticipating that king side attack, and maybe the nicest moment, mobilizing the king, getting out of there. But the second game, I had the white pieces. We rematched. I played e4. Opponent played c5. Now I play a3. This is my e4 course. Link is in the description. I play a lot of different things against the Sicilian. I played this wing gambit. We got takes, knight b4. The idea is to get this overwhelming center, and here the opponent played a very natural move, d5. But d5 already gets black into trouble. You say, what are you talking about, Gotham? Takes, knight a3. This is why it's so good to know your openings. Knight a3 is a super tricky move. Knight b5 is threatened, and a6 doesn't stop it because of this pin. So opponent thought for a while and played bishop b5, and I was like, how does that stop what I want? And here the opponent played long castle. I was like, excuse me? Takes? Okay, now I'm no longer down a pawn, but the opponent plays e5. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of a scary move. If I take, they take me, it's mate. I can go check. That move looks so natural. But what am I doing after king c7? Am I really going to trade my rook? I mean, so I thought, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to develop. Once you've won the opening battle, you hit the pause button, and you just calm down. They take me, I'll take back. It's all good, I'll take back. The opponent played f6, and then during the game, I was like, that's a very slow move. So I just said, okay, I'm going to develop. No threats. Opponent goes knight e7. I'm like, okay, what do they want? They want knight c6, right? Now that I've got my center solidified and I'm going to castle, I'm going to play c4 because they don't have any checks. They used to have checks on me on e4, but they don't have any checks. And now I'm going to make what's called a pawn wedge. I use the attack on the queen to push my pawns forward just a little bit. And what that does is it takes away my opponent's squares. The opponent has to go king b8. Now I just get out. Nothing fancy, just get out. Knight goes back to c8. I said, all right, I'm going to castle. Bishop comes out to c5. I was like, you know what? I don't like that bishop very much. You guys always ask me about trades as well. This is a very open position. Last game was closed, but trades. I really like this trade because, number one, that bishop was covering a lot of important squares. Now it's gone. Number two, I open up my rook. Number three, the less pieces that guard the king, period, the better. Now my plan is this and maybe this in the future, maybe expand, blah, blah, blah. So opponent plays queen c7. I go queen c5. I'm like, okay, my knight is not a very nicely placed piece. I'm going to play king h1 first because I want to move my pawn in the future. So I'm going to get my king out of the middle. Let's play king to h1. Opponent goes rook e8. I play knight back. That activates this. Opponent doesn't blunder that. Now I play rook a4. What's the idea of rook a4? Double stack. I can't put the rook on b1 because of the bishop. Rook up, rook over. Let's go give mate. Opponent plays knight d6. I follow up with my plan. Opponent escapes. Now, I'm like, okay, what is the way I'm going to make progress in this position? Like, what would be the best thing to do? I already did it once earlier. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the smallest piece. The pawns. I want to move this pawn. How do I do that? I remove its blockader. Do not play queen b4. I swear to all things holy, don't play chess like that. Why? You're attacking. Do not trade queens. If you are attacking, it's your most powerful piece. Rook a5. Extract the queen, but now you're all going to laugh. At this point, I did trade the queen, not because I don't listen to my own advice. I listen to all of my own advice. No, I don't. But queen takes b6. Now I have a follow-up, and I noticed a very simple tactical pattern here. As the time ticked down, simplifying, take, bam. Easy. Rook guards. Rook is guarded, and I'm going to take the knight. And I'm like, all right, I trust myself to beat this bozo up a knight. And I played e4 first, locking it. Now you say, well, Levy, what? You know what's funny? If you plug this position into a computer, it wants white to go here. It actually thinks that what I did was +3, but the other evaluation is +9. That's like when you analyze your game after and it's like blunder. And you're like, what do you mean blunder? I won a knight. And the computer's like, well, you could have won faster. It's like the parent, you know? The teenagers watching, you guys know in school, you're like, Mom, Dad, I got a 92. They're like, where did the 8 points go? Why didn't you get 100? You're like, so that's what the computer is like, right? So you play queen to a3 and it's better. But I simplify, I lock the center, and now knight c4 attacks the rook. Now we take, and we give a check. King has to move. We give another check. Remember, I don't have a whole lot of time here, so I'm trying to play simple chess. At this point, I'm like, all right, I want to move my knight, but then he takes my pawn. So let me rotate my bishop back. Never in doubt, a backward bishop move to reactivate. That's called a reroute. rook b8, bishop a4, king back, and I take the pawn. And at this point, I realized there is not a single legal move for the king. All I gotta do is give a check. And the opponent played rook b4, attacking my bishop. You know what's worth more than a bishop? You're worth more than a bishop. You're amazing. Thanks for watching this far in the video. See the benefit of watching this far in the video? You get a compliment. Knight to f7 is made. And I won the game. Now, ladies and gentlemen, remember I told you afterward that I would give you a surprise. I would surprise you at this point. Well, here's your surprise. At this point, I was 2748. I had hit my peak. And someone in my chat said, if you get to 2750, this stream, I didn't want to play again. I was actually kind of nervous. They said, if you get to 2750, this stream, I will donate $2,750 to a charity of your choosing. And I was like, all right, I got to play for the people. All right, I got to do it. I'm nervous. I really hope I don't screw this up because then $2,750 won't go to charity. But I seeked the game. And I got Norwegian International Master Hulkmania 8949. That is not the name on this person's passport, but their name is in their profile. And I was worried. I mean, you get Norway, right? Magnus Carlsen is in the air. I'm like, oh, God. Oh, God. But I'm like, all right, let's do this. I buckled down. Here we go. E4. C6. Another Caro. D4, D5. Takes. So in exchange, Caro-Kann, opponent plays bishop to D3. Knight C6. C3, queen C7, H3. And there's a lot of different ways to play this for black. Personally, I play this with knight F6. I also play knight F6 and try to go for a quick E5. There's also the line that I played in this game, which is the early G6, bishop G7, and then this move. And the whole point of this is that in many positions, the knight rotates to D6. It's a very unique structure. Or you play F6, knight F7, and E5. It's like amazing. It's like, just to give you, oh, no, bishop f4 hangs a bishop. Let's not do that. Let's just give you an example of what that looks like. Bang, 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 and then you try to play e5. And it's amazing because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces escort that pawn. So I was hoping for that, but that line is very aggressive. And I was thinking, all right, you know, charity's on the line. I don't want to do anything stupid. So I'm just going to play a6, knight c2, and knight f5. I'm going to keep it solid, keep it all good. And here my opponent played a4. I played f6 anyway because I have a very active piece. I'm trying to go here. The opponent said, I've had just about enough of your garbage, Gotham. Here's the move c4. I'm like, all right. That move definitely doesn't look very pleasant. I got to take. They take, and I just move my king out of the way. So what has transpired? Well, with that trade, my queen is now opened up. There used to be a pawn there. But because this happens, now any knight move, my queen's open. Okay? My opponent's got an isolated pawn, but a very active piece. Now here, opponent played d5, attacking my knight. So I gotta move. Remember, anywhere I move my knight, it's going to attack the bishop, which is why I threw my knight just into the fire. Okay, opponent said, I could take that. They did, and I took the bishop. And then they played knight takes the f5, and I took with my bishop. Now at this point, I realized rook e7 is possible, but I was just gonna go rook d8. And I was trying to tell myself that it doesn't matter that I'm down a pawn for a moment because I'm going to take d5 and I have compensation. I've got way more active pieces. I can play bishop e4, hitting the knight, maybe hitting this, pawn up, activating all my pieces, double stacking the rooks to try to go to d1. And my opponent should have taken. They should have called me on my bluff, but my opponent played knight d4, blundering that I can actually guard my bishop. At this point, they said, all right, I got to go for this. And here I played the move rook d8. Opponent plays bishop to e3. There's actually a huge difference between how you do this. If I had moved my f rook and then bishop e3 happened, I have bishop f8 and the rook is stuck. Rook c7, bishop c5, and I win material because of the pressure here. Isn't that insane? Like, any human here is just like, well, I haven't moved this rook, so and that's what I did, but I completely just missed that this move forces a defense of the knight, otherwise that, and that's just the difference of computers and humans. Like, the freeing up and the fact that the rook is caged by my queen, and bishop here cuts off the rook's only escape. Crazy. But I played rook d8, bishop e3, and then I played rook d7. I was like, let's just get a very simple position. So, symmetrical structure, queen bishop, and bishop versus queen bishop knight. Opponent plays queen d2. I played pawn to f5, and here he surprised me with this move. I was like, wait a minute, I could take, but then I have check, but I could go here, and then here, Oh, so don't rush. Don't rush. Here I just played rook e8. I said, you could take me. It's all good. Completely equal position. All right, we're not going to win this one. We're going to have to win the next game. Doesn't seem like I'm going to get, you know, the charity here. But then the opponent played rook d1. I was like, wait a minute. That used to guard something. Hello, kabam. Now I'm up a pawn. Opponent moves out of the way. I'm like, wait a second. Kabam. I'm going to checkmate you. And if you take, I'm going to take your queen. So I'm playing on this pin. Opponent plays f3. I'm like, okay. So they're destabilizing the position. And I remember very clearly here seeing the move rook d8. And I really like this move. I like the move rook d8. My logic was that, you know, the opponent will play rook d1. And we just have this, like, thing going on here, right? But you always need to look for checks. And when this knight is so close to my king, there are checks, and maybe they're going to hit me with a discovered attack. So I was thinking to go king g8 in this position to avoid the checks, thinking about my opponent's best move, and then I would regroup. But then I was like, wait, rook d8, they got knight e6. If this, then this. Uh-oh, and I saw that. But then I saw this. I just take, they take, and now I look for a check. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. Uh-oh, and they lose a rook, and none of that would have been possible had I not played this. I induced a dark squared pawn weakness on that square, and it came to fruition a few moves later. I gave another check on f4 just to try to see if the king would walk into my check, and now you have to calculate at this point whether or not you are in a drawn situation. So the opponent goes queen to e7. Where do you go? Where do you go? Do you run out and try to hide amongst the pawns? Don't go here, you get mated. I was like, wait, they can't go here because of my bishop. They got to go here or to d8, and then I run closer. Run toward the queen because there's less squares. Queen f6, king to e8, queen e6, king d8, queen d6, king c8, queen e6, king b8, check, here, check, king e7, queen d4. And then I was like, wait, is it a draw? Because I can't escape, and I realized it's not about my king. Don't get tunnel vision. You got help. b6, queen g7, and bishop covers the king. And at this point, my opponent resigned. Because if they take my pawn, for example, I take with check, I can promote, or I can just bring this together and just go full battery ram, and that's GG. And with this game, I crossed 2750, and I was 2756. And the other surprise of the video is 2 people, not 1, but 2, ended up donating $2,750 to charity. I chose pancreatic cancer research. Obviously, there's a lot of noble causes, but, you know, those 3 games that I wanted to share with you, I want to share for a reason. I don't usually put on my own YouTube channel games that I play against other people on stream. I'm usually just playing blitz, trash talking, there's music. I don't really care too much, but I feel like my chess recently has been really sharp, and actually 2756 was not my highest rating that I ever had. So if you watch this far, you get another surprise. Later in the stream, I got to 2767. But I also beat that person on time twice in very bad games. These games, on the other hand, were very high quality. That's why I wanted to share them with you, showing you how to overcome different situations in the opening, adapt on the fly, and how I visualize the position and how it changes, whether there's a trade or a small maneuver, or my game plan, or, you know, anticipating what my opponent wants, inducing certain moves to change the position, weaken something else, and so on and so forth. So, hope you enjoyed the video. I can't promise you I'm going to make more like this, because I can't promise you I'm going to get up to 2,800. But let me know if you did like it. If there's anything you want to know more in videos about me or my chess, speed chess, rapid, or so on, let me know. And I'll see you in the next one.